Okay, Billy, can you put me on, please?
You're on.
Sam?
You are, yes.
Okay, yeah. Good morning, everyone. Chuchi was supposed to present this, but unfortunately, something came up. So you have me instead. We will be using her PowerPoint. And at the end of that, if you have any questions, please just put it in the chat. Or if you want to share something, you can always ask Sam to put you on. Okay, so can we start, Sam? Um, s- s- okay. So the talk is going to be about the energy centers, the development of the false self. I can't go to the next slide, Sam. Okay. Come, Holy Spirit, fill the hearts of your faithful and enkindle in them the fire of your love. Send forth your Spirit, and they shall be created, and you shall renew the face of the earth. Come, Lord Jesus, come. This is the flow of the talk, the way Chuchi set it up. So, first you have the stages of life, then the true self and the false self, then the creation of the energy centers, the summary, which is really after the question and answer, then the takeaway. If you'll notice at the bottom, she's introducing May 16 because that will be the explanation of her final talk. Okay. Okay. Human growth involves the development of the physical, emotional, mental, and spiritual phases of human life. The physical, we don't have any control of. I mean, like it or not, Bello can only do so much. So what happens is that from embryo to fetus to baby to child to adolescent to elder to adult to elder. And then the growth is also in the emotional, which involves your instincts, feelings, moods, reactions. This one is really very dependent on what happens to what you experience in life and your choices. I mean, how many times do you meet up with somebody and you keep thinking, oh boy, this person, even at the age of 60, still has a lot of growing up to do. Mental, again, this is a choice. It involves the development of the senses, drives, inclination, thoughts, speech, learning, plans, reflections. The spiritual, this is really about our relationships with our inner self, our families, the different groups that we come into, community, and church. This is really a matter of cooperating with the graces God gives us. Genesis has God saying, let us make man in our image after our likeness. So from all eternity, God has a divine plan for each of us. And from the moment of conception, in this single cell, there is already the divine indwelling, God present in us and sustaining us at every moment. And there is the true self, the part of us that participates in God's love and goodness. The stages of growth are each characterized by a level of awareness, how a person perceives and absorbs the world. And then growth comes through the fulfillment of instinctual needs, and these instinctual needs we are born with, they are natural, God-given, and essential for our growth. The womb, the uterus, is baby's first home for approximately 40 weeks. Pregnancy typically lasts 280 days or 40 weeks, beginning with the first day after the last menstrual period. Before people thought that the child was a tabula rasa, as long as it was in the womb, it wasn't feeling anything. But now they've realized that the fetus experiences through its mother happiness or sadness, comfort or deprivation, calm or noise. In fact, babies born to mothers who are depressed also are depressed babies. At 0 to 2 years old, the level of awareness is physical. Everything that the child experiences comes out through his sense of taste, touch, smell, hearing, which is probably why anytime you give the baby anything, he'll stuff it into his mouth. There is nothing more vulnerable than a child. Child can't do anything. A baby can't do anything. Somebody has to give it food, clothing, and shelter. So the instinctual needs are security and survival. When a mother breastfeeds the baby touches the mother, smells the mother, tastes the mother in his milk, and if the mother sings lullabies or talks to the baby, the child knows that this his sense of security and survival are being met. So the breastfeeding, the needs of survival and security are fulfilled. In God's plan, the instinctual needs of security and survival are fully met and they are integrated. So here you have your level of awareness, which is physical, your instinctual need of security and survival. And since these are all met, the experience of God comes in through the experience that the world is a good place. And in the unconscious, you have the true self, the divine indwelling, and the instinctual need is integrated. In infancy, the child identifies completely with the caregiver. At the age of 2, the child realizes that he is a separate being. If he notices that if he gets hurt, the mother doesn't get hurt. So he realizes, oh, she's not me. I am me. Not only is he separated, but he lives in the land of giants who have complete control over him. And so now, since the level of awareness is emotional, the following things develop. So at 2 to 4 years old, the instinctual needs of affection and esteem, power and control, and pleasure come in. They start to develop. The ego at this stage is very fragile and needs to be fostered by admiration, affection, and esteem, which is why every time the child does something and you clap, the child is just dying to do it again and again as long as somebody is there saying, oh, wow, gee, that's so nice. And then you have your power and control. The child attempts to do things by himself. Even though it takes a long, long time, he's there trying to tie his shoelaces or putting on or buttoning his blouse. The instinctual need of pleasure leads to play, imagination, and creativity, and the development of a moral sense. Piaget, the leading child psychologist, s- always says that it is playing games that the child realizes that there are rules. And not only are there rules that he has to follow, there are consequences when he doesn't do it. And obviously, when you're playing a game and you don't follow the rules and you keep not following the rules, pretty soon nobody wants to play with you. Montessori also applies this sense of pleasure. The prelude to learning how to write is that they make you color. So it is in the pleasure of coloring that you learn how to handle your pencil or your ball pen. So at 2 to 4 years old, the level of awareness is emotional. The instinctual needs of affection, esteem, power, control, pleasure. And in God's plan, the experience of God is experienced through I am good. And in the unconscious, you have the true self, the divine indwelling, and the integrated needs of security and survival. And now all of this affection, esteem, power and control, and pleasure. At 4 to 7 years old, the level of awareness is social, and the instinctual need is to belong. And this happens through family. First, the child realizes, oh, I have brothers and sisters. I have an ate and a kuya. And then I have cousins. They come and play with me. And at an early age nowadays, children are sent to school. And so now, oh, I'm a Lasalite, or I'm Anatomista, or I'm from Poveda. And then he also enlarges it with groups. Nowadays, parents make up play groups, or they go play soccer, or they have go lessons in painting, and then this enlarges into community. So for 7 to 7 years old, the level of awareness is social. The instinctual need is to belong, and in God's plan, the experience of God is experienced through I am part of God's creation, and all these needs are integrated within the true self and the divine indwelling. At 7 to 15 years, there are changes in the physical, emotional, and mental self. So the, the boy might start shaving, the girl is now looking for a bra, and there is a difference now in the emotions. Like there among the girls, there's a consciousness that, oh, I find men now attractive, whereas before I couldn't stand them. Now it's nice being able to talk to men. But the level of awareness is rational. Everything is in its place. You might have an emotion of anger, but it is controlled, so the anger is never meant to lash out to other people. At 7 to 15 years, growing into adolescence, our God consciousness manifests as we encounter the experience of life. So you have the experience of God, complete experience of the indwelling God. The true self is now a co creator. The true self realizes that whatever gives or that person is now part of God's plan to have his kingdom come. So you have now your true self, the divine indwelling, and an individual who knows that he is a co creator. The conscious and the unconscious are united, and since this is united, body, mind, and soul are also all working together. Obviously, this is not fulfilled in our lives. God's plan does not come into fulfillment. In Thomas Keating's Invitation to Love, he explains that our programs for happiness are not just random habits, they are deep seated biological and psychological energy centers that develop in a specific sequence as we grow. When our basic needs for security, affection, and power are not met during these formative years, they become addictive and form the core of the false self. Paul goes to the extent of saying, "For I do not do what I want, but do the very thing I hate. For I have the desire to do what is right, but not the ability to carry it out. For I do not do the good I want, but the evil I do not want is what I keep doing." So let's trace what happens, why this occurs. Even before birth, a baby in the womb can already experience stress. Scientific evidence shows that women who experience starvation during a war pass on genetic effects, even to the point of their grandchildren. They've also, like, for example, in the study for the effects of smoking, it goes all the way down to your child, even though you've already stopped smoking. The instinctual needs for security and survival are not met. They realize that the reason why the mortality rate in an orphanage in Kosovo was so bad because the children were just left alone. Nobody was taking care of them. Nobody realized when they were hungry or when they needed diapers change. Or much more important, there was nobody to cuddle them or to make them realize that they were loved. In the Philippines, it's just as bad actually in some areas. In Caloocan, Father Willie put up a feeding station just to help out with all the children that were not getting fed. So the instinctual needs for security and survival are not met, so they are not integrated. They get buried in the unconscious as a demand something that needs to be filled up precisely because it was not given at the time when it was so much needed. The instinctual need for power and control are not met. This isn't so bad anymore in this generation, but before it was children should be seen and not heard, and their opinions didn't count. It's much better now, but even in the simplest things like I remember seeing a child would really mix match. The clothing just didn't get together. A- And obviously, she had a parent who was kind enough to just let her be and to let her choose what she wanted to wear. But many of the times, that's not done. The mother will say, "No, you can't wear that. Go and change." So again, since this is not met, it is put in the subconscious as an energy center for power and control. The instinctual needs for affection, esteem, and pleasure are not met. I remember one time we were with Mother Teresa, and there was a child crying precisely because she was missing her mother. And then right across from the room, one of the yayas shouted, "Ang pangit mo na nga, ang sama pa ng ugali mo." And I was thinking, Jesus, I'm wondering, that poor child was already feeling so bad, plus being told she's pangit, plus being told she's masungit. So really, affection and esteem not met at all. And pleasure, especially during the COVID era. I remember one boy was saying, "Teacher, I really miss being outside. I really want to play football." So during COVID, this instinctual need for pleasure was not met at all. And what happens is this: another energy center is buried in the unconscious. You now have the energy center of affection and pleasure and esteem. And all this comes about now. You have the incomplete experience of God. The world is a good place if I am good, if I belong, if. And the level of awareness is fragmented. So you now have buried in the unconscious the energy center of security and survival, the energy center of power and control, the energy center of esteem, affection, and pleasure. And this is now what influences the conscious and what influences the body, the mind, and the soul. The instinctual needs, which were God given, natural, and necessary for growth, become distorted in drives. They now become a must thing, and they become demands. That which was naturally born, God given, essential, become compulsive and obsessive. So instead of being happy that you have enough money to need your needs, you have to have 2 million, 3 million, 5 million, and it doesn't matter how you get it. It doesn't matter that people are drowning because you pocketed the one for their flood control, but I need the money and I will get it. and the demand becomes exaggerated and insatiable. It's not only just a car, it has to be a very expensive car. And it not only just one, it has to be three, four, five, 15, all seated in a garage that is air conditioned and not used, but it's just there because your instinctual need is demanding it. So let's trace what happens. So in infancy, the security and survival is your instinctual need, and its focus is to give you biological survival and physical comfort. And all this is communicated again through touch, through sound, and through the senses. The infant is born in a state of absolute helplessness. Survival depends entirely on the other, usually the mother or primary caregiver. If you'll notice nowadays, the minute the child is born, it's given to the mother right away. When the infant is hungry, cold, or lonely, and the need is not immediately met, they experience existential dread, a primal fear of non existence. I am crying and crying, but nobody is paying any attention to me. I don't exist at all. To cope with this fear, the psyche creates a security program, the energy center of security and survival. And the adult manifestation is an obsession with health. So you have hypochondriacs, financial hoarding. I have to have this much money, insurance. I need to know every single day that I am going to be okay. Physical safety. This is an excess, huh? I mean, or an inability to handle change or discomfort. Somebody who falls apart just because the menu has been changed. And the false self system, I am only okay if I'm physically safe and my material needs are met. So in early childhood, again, the instinctual needs are affection and esteem, and the primary focus is emotionally belonging and validation from others. As the child develops a sense of me, they realize they are a person among other people. They hunger for approval to confirm their value. And if a child is ignored, criticized, or only given conditional love, love based on performance, they feel a deep sense of shame or unlovability. Sometimes this comes out as unintended. My daughter is a super, oh, everything has to be perfect, which causes quite a lot of tension. And one time I was asking her, Leah, why precisely we sent you to Montessori school? Because we didn't want you to have that much pressure. And then she said something which really struck me. She said, Mama, I always felt that you loved me because I was doing well. And I told her, I apologize if I ever gave you that sense. I really didn't intend to do it. So sometimes it's not a thing of, life just happens. The child learns to perform or please to win back affection. This creates the affection esteem center, and in adult, this looks like people pleasing, workaholism, a need for constant praise, or devastating sensitivity to criticism or being left out. Some people we call balat sibuyas because you can't tell them anything before they take offense. And the false self script, I am only okay if I am liked, admired, and approved of by others. And so we come to late childhood and adolescence, the power and control center. And the primary focus is agency, your talents, autonomy, and the ability to influence the environment. As the child enters the age of reason and adolescence, they seek to assert their will. They want to prove they can do things and make choices. This is really the natural way because people are starting to realize their talents, and so they'd want to exercise it to prove that they can do things and that they count. If the child is overly controlled by parents, or conversely, if they are humiliated by peers, they feel a terrifying sense of powerlessness. This one by peers is so, so important. I remember my granddaughter, I was offering her as something for her hair, and she said, Nona, nobody here wears that. So it's the peer influence is amazing.
Nawala. Nawala tapos naka-mute daw ako. Naka-mute daw. Ano yung sound daw? Ay, hindi
To
ako makasama.
compensate for feeling helpless, the ego develops a drive to dominate, to be right, or to control outcomes.
Yeah, your microphone is unmuted. Your video is stuck.
And the adult manifestation disappears as
Ano na lang po natin ulit. Baka
uh,
ako masyado na
okay. Disappears as perfectionism, the need to win every argument. This is so frustrating when you're talking to somebody and they just keep saying, yeah, but this is the way it should be. Micromanaging others or inability to trust anyone else with responsibility. This is somebody who, ako na lang gagawa, wag na lang ikaw.
Bakit ho ba na? Ayan.
And in the false self script, I am only okay if I am in control of the situation and people do what I want. In adulthood comes the solidification of the false self. By the time we reach adulthood, these three centers are usually fully wired into our nervous system. We don't even realize that we're behaving according to the energy centers. They're now second nature to us. So what happens to true self? Kawawa the true self, the one that participates in the inner life of the Trinity. It can't function fully because we now function according to the instinctual drives of security, survival, affection, esteem, power, control that are not met. And there are some things that go wrong. So you have the traumatic experience of childbirth, and then you have things that happen to you in your life, like I know somebody who doesn't like dogs because she got bitten as a child by a dog. You have cultural conditioning. I'm just going to point out the bad parts, because there are many good parts in cultural conditioning. But like for example, we as girls are made to be pleasant and amiable. So it's very seldom that we will say, you're wrong, or I don't want to do this. Our automatic procedure is to say, okay, yeah, I'll do it. Parental and peer group expectations. Yeah, you have a family that you have doctor and doctor and doctor and doctor, or there's one lawyer firm that you have Alcantara, Alcantara, Alcantara. The father expects the son to continue as a lawyer or as a doctor or to take over the business when he retires. And then you have the worldview mindsets like, gee, I'm an American and I can control Canada, or I should wage war because I feel that they're not doing the right thing. And then you have the religious influence. I'm not talking about the good part. I'm talking about the obsessive part. Like, uh, Muslims are not going to go to heaven because they're Muslims. The only ones that are going to go to heaven are Catholics. And they can only go into heaven if they don't have any mortal sin. And you have your moral attitude. Like, for example, a mother obsesses because the child is gay, and no gay is within God's loving care. Consumerism. Oh, this one we are so, so, so open to, especially with, you have now Temu, you have Amazon. It's so easy, especially when they keep sending you their sales or on whatever is available, and they have such tempting pictures. And even when you don't need it, you keep saying, "Oh nga, ang ganda, no? I think I'll go buy it." And you have the emotional damage of a lifetime. These are the things that are come in that you have no choice of, and they really did damage to you. uh like as I said, like, we have a friend who can't stand, who's deathly afraid of cats because as a child somebody held out a newly born kitten to her. Newly born kittens really look horrible, so she completely freaked out and now doesn't like cats at all. And now we have technology, which really has good and bad points. Technology sometimes makes us so self-independent that we forget that it is really given as God's grace. We think of it as, oh yeah, I'm sick. I'm going to go to the doctor and he'll give me medicines. And we forget that we need God's grace also for the health to come back. So now, we'll finish with all this and we will go to the next slide. We no longer have these programs. We are these programs. We identify ourselves with our bank account, security, our social status, esteem, or our authority, which is power. And unfortunately for us, society helps us fill out these programs. Next slide, please. Society rewards this program. We call the power center leadership, the esteem center charisma, and the security center prudence. When life frustrates this program, losing a job, getting a negative review, or a health crisis, the adult experiences afflictive emotions, anger, fear, or depression. Instead of seeing the programs as the problem, the false self blames the world and doubles down on its efforts to gain more security, more affection, or more power. It is an endless desire for these things. So, in summary, you have your energy center for security and survival, all this which should have been integrated in infancy, and the core fear is which is extinction and pain. And if it is not met, the adult addictive behavior is hoarding, anxiety, health obsession. And what about the Center for Affection and Esteem, which should be fulfilled in early childhood and, when not fulfilled, comes out as rejection and shame, and it influences a behavior that is people pleasing, seeking fame, or approval. And then you have the other energy center of power and control, which should be fulfilled in adolescence. And when not fulfilled, the fear is always of helplessness, and it can only be assuaged by dominance, control, and perfectionism. And all this results in the false self system. I'm not going into how this operates because that is going to be Miren's talk on May 16. So we'll just go on to the next slide, please. This is a quote from Thomas Merton. For the sinful self is not my real self. It is not the self that you have wanted for me, only the self that I have wanted. And I no longer want this false self. But now, Father, I come to you in your own Son's self, and it is He who presents me to you. This is from Father Basil. False self is an identity based on what you have, what you do, and what others think about you. In stark contrast to this is the true self in Christ, which is who we are before God and in God, Christ living in us, as Paul put it to the churches in Galatia. And from Father Keating, the false self is deeply entrenched. You can change your name and address, religion, country, and clothes. But as long as you don't ask it to change, the false self simply adjusts to the new environment. I remember the story about this woman. She knew she wanted to be a nun, but she just couldn't be one because she was so deprived of new clothes as a child. For example, instead of drinking your friends under the table as a significant sign of self-worth and esteem, if you enter a monastery, as I did, fasting the other monks under the table could become your new path to glory. The spiritual journey is the process of discovering that these programs do not work and then consenting to the presence and action of God to dismantle them. From Father Keating. So, this is the part that, as I said, we're not going to talk about. This is the system of the false self, and how it works is going to be the talk by Miren on May 12th, on May 16th. In the meantime, we are now open for questions. Just write the questions on the chat, or if you want, ask Sam to put you on so you can ask the question. Sam, can you please take this out now? Okay. I can't see the chat, so Sam will have to be the one to tell me if there are questions.
Okay po. As of now, we don't have
There are no
questions, but
questions?
they can also go on mute and ask you directly if they need.
And if there are any comments, please just ask Sam to put you on.
Any questions?
Can I ask something from Chickie?
Oh, I just see Christine greeting everybody.
Yes, good morning, everyone. So, I think the word program of happiness was not yet mentioned here, but these issues or woundedness, does that mean that the issues and woundedness in the energy centers that we may not even be aware of, that were caused during, of course, our childhood through child rearing or trauma or family values. So this becomes a coping mechanism. The program of happiness is the coping mechanism to fill up the need of whatever energy center that has a great need or is needed. Is that it?
Yes, that's actually what the energy center does. It's like a void that has to be filled up. And since it's not rational anymore, it's obsessive and very demanding. I think we all have experienced that in the sense that many times you do, at least me, I do something and then I realize, why in heaven's name did I do that? And it's really because something in me needed it, something not rational.
Yeah, and the program of happiness, because I remember Father Chickie used to use that word a lot. So it becomes habitual, especially when you don't, for example, get to use centering prayer or you're unaware, then you don't abort that program of hope.
Uh, yes, that's why this is a series of talks, because the next talk will be how the false self system operates. And then after that will come the dismantling of the false self. And then after that will come Billy's talk, which is really who is this God we're having a relationship with. That's why it's a series, because each one builds on what the first series started. So now we're just talking about how we develop the energy center. Then we then will talk about how it works, and then the next talk will be how to dismantle.
Thank you.
Thank you for asking the questions. Anybody else? Okay, then I think we can close. Thank you very, very much for coming.
Thank you,
And thank
Chucky.
you. Yeah,
I
and
thank
thank you.
you, ano,
And thank
Chicky.
you for
Wait, Miren.
Cookie.
Miren. Miren.
Oh, hi, Miren.
No, I wanted to thank Chicky only. It must have been, Chuchi was supposed to present it and then you ended up presenting.
Yeah, I
So,
know, kind of scary, but she did such a good job with her
Very good.
yeah, the slides are
PowerPoint.
very good.
Yeah,
Yeah,
Very good, Chickie.
yes,
Very well. And very
very
good
well done.
attendance. Very good, everybody.
Thank you. Please make sure you attend Miren's talk, huh? That's
Of
on
course. See you,
June
see
Miren.
you
on
all
next week.
again on next week. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Bye, everyone.
We're
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
excited
Take
now,
care.
Miren.
Thank
Ay,
Yeah.
you,
nako.
everyone. See
Okay.
you.
Bye,
The
bye,
pressure is
everyone.
on.
You're
Bye.
going to do well. Okay.
Bye.
Bye. Thank
Bye.
you,
Bye.
Sam.
Bye.
Thanks,
Thank you,
Sam.
Chickie. Thank you, Billy.
Thank you,
Thank you.
everyone.
You.